Good morning and welcome for the Committee on Concurrence here at the Senate Chamber at the State House. I think we're going to discuss the Senate Bill 147 and go over some of the changes that the House made and discuss them. But I think before we get started, let's just do a quick introduction so the people outside on the web here can see and know who we are. I'll start with Representative Leon. You need to turn on the button on yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Representative Erica Leon. I represent Derry, Rockingham 6. I'm a first-term legislator on the House Education Committee.
Thank you.
Good morning, Erin Hennessy from Littleton. I'm State Senator from District 1, which is Northern Grafton and all of Cowas counties.
Representative Fidelli.
Thank you. Representative Glenn Cordelli, representing Tufton Borough, Moulton Borough, and Sandwich in the beautiful Lakes region. And this is my 5th term, and I am Vice Chair of House Education.
Thank you. Representative Hill.
Good morning. I am Representative Greg Hill. I represent Northfield and 1/3 of the city of Franklin.
Thank you. And the Chair of Education House.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Representative Rick Ladd from Haverhill, New Hampshire. I'm Chair of House Education, and I'm pleased to be here today.
Thank you. And I'm Senator Ruth Ward from District 8. So let's get started. House Bill 147. There are several parts to it. Let's start with part 1, application for federal student aid. Senator Khan, you have some brief comments on it.
If the House wants to explain its amendment to part 1, I'd be interested in hearing your rationale. If you recall, I was at a funeral the day that this was introduced, so I could not participate well in your discussions, and then your work session was on a day when we had Senate session. So I would like to present some information about part 1, but maybe understanding why you thought it was better to reduce it to what it is would be, I don't understand.
Okay, I'll respond to that, Senator. When we looked at part 1 of this bill, we addressed the issue of graduation requirements associated with completing the free application for federal student aid. A concern that we had, several concerns. One, we recognize the value and the importance of completing the FAFSA. We looked and did a study of schools throughout the state here, recognizing there's some high schools that have a FAFSA completion rate of well over 70%, close to 75%. We have some others that are well below 20%. Significant difference. And yet we want all our kids to have the opportunity to move forward and have an opportunity to go to post-secondary education, be it either a technical orientation or it be a 2-year or 4-year, or just go off and not just, but go off and work in the military. A lot of opportunity for kids to graduate. We are concerned by requiring this as a graduation requirement, with the exception that you could fill out a waiver. We believe that's an invasion of the privacy of the family. There are many students who do not care to go off anywhere, and we don't believe that they should be required to fill out a FAFSA. We do strongly urge our counselors within the high schools to move forward with open houses at the several times during the school year to explain the FAFSA to parents the complexities of the FAFSA are enormous. And by reading the research that I have done here, which I have some today with me, it indicates that we can give this nudge and this assistance to students, and that does make a difference. But by requiring all to complete this FAFSA in order to graduate, and with the exception, they can fill out the form and a written form and have a waiver, we believe that's inappropriate. We think it's a breach of confidentiality of a family. And so we urge schools to continue the work and efforts as those school districts are doing right now that are well over 70%. It can be done. Thank you very much.
Any rebuttal?
Yeah. Glad to rebut that. So it's not often that we can see the future, but in this case, it's pretty clear. By 23-24 academic year, the federal government will have a new financial free application for federal financial aid. And that was just passed in December. It's the Lamar Alexander's final action in the US Senate. And it's something that he'd worked on for years and years to reduce the FAFSA form down to 18 questions and simplify this. Much less invasive. It was his primary goal in creating this new form. So that's one piece. Second is that we will not be breaking new ground here. States are already requiring a FAFSA completion. This legislation does not require every student to complete the applications. Representative Ladd, you were correct. There are three options. One is a student completes it. The second is that a student says, I've been informed of what is entailed in completing it, but I've chosen not to. And that's the privacy out. People may not want to disclose family information. And a third is that a superintendent can simply waive the requirement due to extenuating circumstances. So all three of those options are explained in the bill in section 1 and in section 2. That's the second point. Third point is that the states that have introduced this, Louisiana, Illinois, now Texas, the top three states completing FAFSAs are Louisiana, Illinois, and Tennessee. And if you're familiar with higher education in Tennessee, they're very aggressive on getting their high school population into college. And they are actively in the schools making sure that these are being completed because it's free college. They top off their state contribution to a community college education is topping off what the federal government won't pay for. So it works. In Louisiana, they moved the FAFSA completion form from essentially our state average up by 20 percentage points to 77% of their high school graduating class is completing a FAFSA now.
Thank you. Senator Khan.
So my last point is, and I'd be glad to share with you, but there is, I've been corresponding with NEAF, the New Hampshire Higher Education Financial Assistance Corporation, and with the University System of New Hampshire, and with the New Hampshire Higher Education Council. And they all are very interested in wanting to produce the materials by 2023 that will allow for this to be online or in-person education. So this is fairly low impact. Representative Ladd, this is financial literacy. This is what we passed in House Bill 242 to encourage financial literacy and independence for high school students to make a choice to go to college. And to do so at a free cost. And why? And here's the last piece. Before Congress right now are two bills. One is called Double Pell, which would double Pell from $6,400 to $12,800. And another one that's called Workforce Pell. And that eligibility would help students who want just a certificate, not even a year's worth of college. They want a workforce certificate. And right now, Pell won't support that. But if it would, just think of how many more students. We need an educated workforce in our state. And I think that's something we all would agree to. And that have post-secondary education credentials. I think this is that one of those moments in time when you can see puzzle pieces and they're coming together. And we can either be at the front end of the curve with another 14 states that are currently considering this kind of legislation, or we can be in the back end. Our FAFSA completion is dropping. We've got the 16th fastest dropping FAFSA completion rate in the country. It's dropped by 6% this year, 5% last year. Our college going rate is dropping in New Hampshire as well. This is something that we can turn the corner on. That's why I'm passionate on this question, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Khan. What is the date for the new forms coming out?
It's for the admission to the 23-24 academic year.
Okay, but here in the Senate version, we're talking about January 2022, which is what, 6 months from now?
Let's make sure.
So I know what I'm thinking about, in order to get around the privacy issue, if that's going to be an easier thing to manage, would it make sense in that case to move it up, the effective date to move it up?
As
Move it
amended,
up or out.
the Senate version as amended, it takes effect on passage, but it says on line 18 and page 1, beginning with the 23-24 school year. So we amended that at the suggestion of the university system to coincide with the year in which that FAFSA completion form is being implemented. So it gives us a 3-year, two years of ramp up before students would be applying for this academic year.
So the January 2022 is not applicable.
No,
Okay. Representative Cordelli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of points. One, in relation to dropping percentage of FAFSA completions in the state. I believe the House amendment addresses that by requiring schools to provide the number and percentages of graduating students completing that form. So I think that we addressed that in our amendment. I agree with Chairman Ladd that I believe that it's an overreach to require completion of the form or filling out a waiver. We are in effect creating a penalty for students graduation based upon an action of their parents, which is a troubling point for me. And third, the third option, extenuating circumstances, really negates everything, items 1 and 2. So I don't see, I'm just concerned about the whole process and what I consider an overreach in this regard.
Thank you. Representative Hill, you wanted to say something?
Thank you. It seems to me what this is doing is turning what is existing as an opt-in into an opt-out by your second point, the first part of your second point. And I'm not sure if you'll get with that opt-out the results that you may be hoping for. I know in my own district, it makes a enormous difference with the success rate of a student in college. Statewide, we have about a 70% completion rate from college. My district has about a 25 to 28% success rate in college. So that would have to be part of that discussion, it would seem to me. So filling out the FAFSA form seems to be putting the cart before the horse for me. But also putting the cart before the horse is this effective date. It was my understanding that this was going to go into effect. I don't have the bill in front of me. I thought this was coming into effect much earlier than when any of the new requirements federally would be coming in. And so generally, you know, I'm happier being Burger King than McDonald's. I would rather have all of the mistakes made and corrected before I jump into another program. So that's my only comment.
Thank you. Representative Leon?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for taking my comments. I think that there are some very interesting things to be learned from Tennessee and their school system, especially since they are the volunteers. Here in New Hampshire, we have a very strong, right now, we don't have to mandate everything. We have a higher seatbelt rate than Massachusetts, but it's not required for adults. We have a lot of different changes that are going to make it easier for students to complete these FAFSAs. Moving to the new form in the 23-24 school year will be a significant relief to them because it will be easier. Having these additional federal aids will make it a lot more important and meaningful for students to complete it. But I don't think that mandating it is the right path. We need to have self-starters in college as well. We do encourage that throughout the schools, but if they won't take the initiative to, once they're made aware of the FAFSA, go ahead and fill this out, are they going to have the initiative to follow through in their classes? We can lead them to the opportunities, but we need to realize that as functional adults, they do need to take some responsibility for completing these forms, moving forward and taking ownership of their own education. And without that ownership of their education, you'll have these students that do have a college degree, but may not have the decision-making skills that they need in the workforce. And if you look to some of these other students too, that are a lot more privacy oriented in their families, would we be encouraging them to drop out before graduation because they don't want to take on the waiver? They don't want to talk to their superintendent, and they would simply rather step out of the school system instead of being confronted with this choice. These are our more vulnerable students, and I'm worried that in our attempt to do well for them, we may actually put them at further disadvantage.
Thank you. Representative Glenn.
Senator Ward, if you look at the side-by-side we have in front of us on page 1, what we have done in the House under the section 193E3, Roman 1, we're discussing the delivery of an adequate education. What are the indicators that an adequate education is being delivered in a particular school? Schools at the conclusion of the year are required to submit to the Department of Education a report. The report indicates the number and percentage of students that have graduated, the number and percentage of students that go off in the military, the number and percentage of students that complete a certain score in the ASVAB, number and percentage of students that attended career technical education while in school, the number of and percentage of kids that are moving off into a career technical education pathway, the number of and percentage of students that have completed an AP course while in school. All these are indicators of the delivery of an adequate education and how we assess that as a state. We've added to these indicators, and there's some more indicators I didn't go through and mention, dealing with suspension, expulsion, et cetera. But we have now said the number and percentage of graduating high school students provided in-person school assistance in completing a free application for FAFSA form. I'm using the FAFSA form. So the State Department of Education will have an understanding of what's going on in these schools. How many students are completing this? And of course, if the percentage, we may only have 10 kids that are graduating, but you might have a 90% completion rate. That's wonderful.
Mhm.
However, you may have a larger population that there's only a few going. What's going on? That would be then a responsibility for our executive department, Department of Education, to query from that particular school district. I don't believe it's important or necessary for us to put down a graduating requirement or using the other two exceptions as spoken to by Senator Khan as another requirement put on the student. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Senator Khan, okay, we're running a little bit short on time here. I was hoping that we could start with the votes.
What is being asked for in the House amendment already exists. It's already reported. And if you go to a site called Your Financial Future, I believe, it's already there. So requiring something that's already public information, I see no purpose. Is it worth throwing out this bill? That's, I think, something that we need to consider. This isn't that onerous a requirement. If a parent refuses to fill out the form, that's an extenuating circumstance. The date for implementation gives us all that ramp up time. We'll see whatever the errors are. Texas is implementing it this week. We'll have plenty of experience. We've got the actors in the state, the key actors, prepared to help school districts. And it's the students who need financial assistance the most who aren't applying for it, who aren't going off to college. So I agree with you. It's those who need it the most. And this is financial literacy. I mean, if this isn't financial literacy to be teaching this in college, I'm losing the point of what is the first most important responsible decision that students need to make post high school. So I would, we can adjust this in some ways, but I think not acting at this point in time, requiring just what's in the House version, which already is public information, I think is missing the point of how we can be leading on this as opposed to just looking for numbers that already exist. So that's,
You want to make a motion? I guess what we're voting on is whether or not we're accepting the House amendment to 147 on part 2.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
before we go that direction, we have 4 parts to this bill. When I've conducted, I know this is the Senate, when I've conducted community conferences prior on the other side of the wall, we've gone through omnibus type bills, gone through all parts. There may be negotiations goes on here that regarding, I like this part more than I like this part. So I'm willing to give a little bit on that other part. That's possible, that could occur. So from the House perspective, we'd rather not take a position. We'd like to go through and have our remarks known on the various parts here, and then come back and we can do our negotiations.
Okay, so we'll do one part at a time. Right? Okay, it's fine with me. So are we done with part 2? Have we had enough discussion on it? Yes, okay. Part 3, which has to do with transportation and the requirements of the drivers. The House changed it from needing a school bus driver certificate to just having a commercial driver's license. I did look into that and see there's a difference. These people, the people that we're referencing in part 3 are not doing the home to school driving. They're only doing for extracurricular activities. So any comments on part 3?
Yes, Senator, we do have a comment.
Okay,
Most often, when we're using a coach, be it the Dartmouth coach or the Concord coach or Trailways or Greyhound, what have you, it's for these longer trips, which we're taking oftentimes in the middle school and transporting students maybe perhaps to Washington, DC.
Mhm.
And we know that for the comfort of our students, you need to have a washroom or bathroom on a bus. And so that's one thing the yellow bus does not provide.
Mhm.
We also know that for athletic events or even on that long trip to DC, you need storage room for all your baggage. And it's best that that baggage be placed underneath the floor in a commercial bus than on seats where if there is an accident, it's flying around and there's a higher risk of accident or injury. So in looking at the commercial bus service, and we had information brought to us by that industry when we had our hearing on this bill, as well as from school districts such as the school bus director in Keene, New Hampshire. And they support the commercial bus being used, but currently you cannot use a commercial bus and be doing so in a fashion, as we've been told by the director of safety, in an illegal manner. The commercial bus, we are not allowed to contract with those commercial buses. So we recognize that we need to have some kind of a way to allow that to occur so we can limit litigation and liability for using something that statutorily it doesn't give us that authority to do.
Mhm.
So we recognize the need to use the commercial bus. Now, in terms of the commercial bus driver having to have a DOE bus certification as a school bus driver, that could be a real problem on a trip. For example, you're taking down to Washington, DC, and all of a sudden the bus driver is ill. You're going to have to replace that driver somewhere along the way. Is the driver going to pick up in Philadelphia going to have New Hampshire's school bus driving certificate? Most likely not, but they're going to have a commercial, a CDL. These drivers are highly trained. They're highly trained on safety requirements on a bus as a pilot is on a plane, as far as directing students how to get off, how to get on. And it is the responsibility of the school district to have a supervisor on a commercial bus. It's not the responsibility of the commercial bus driver to be supervising the students on the bus, as well as ensuring that it's being driven in a safe manner. So we've gone ahead and recognized the need. We need to deal with this liability issue. And, but we also need to respect the need of school districts to use these commercial buses. And to do so, we do so in a safe manner. We don't believe you need to have the bus driver certificate issued by the state. And we've also put a limit on this as 150 miles round trip. Thank you.
You're welcome. Question, do the commercial drivers also have a background check?
Yes, they do have.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the bus drivers, commercial drivers versus drivers with school bus certification? Did you? Okay.
I think we're close enough on this one that, if we're gonna try to move this bill in its entirety, I think where the House is close enough. The issue that the Senate wanted to address is the sexual harassment, bullying, the kind of training that school bus drivers go through that lead to reportable kinds of situations in class trips or otherwise. That was the intent there. But I trust too that our commercial contractors probably do sufficient training, and that if schools are going to be using those, that they'll find other ways of communicating the kinds of behavior that's appropriate and inappropriate, and the kind of reporting that they would expect. I think we shouldn't lose sight of those issues if we accept the House's version.
Then I think we can move over to section 4, which has to do with special education for certain communities. And I think that Representative Hill has something to say about that.
Yes, I might. I'm not sure if you want to handle the initial changes on that bill or not. The area in gray, it seems to be just wordsmithing to me, where it would just add words like district or community. But I am here specifically to talk about the new sections 2 through 5.
Right. Why don't you talk about the new section,
Okay. So,
the
this
Reader's
is,
Digest version,
I'm sorry?
the
Go.
Reader's Digest version.
The Cliff Notes.
All right. This is enabling legislation. This allows a district to join together with 4 other districts and self-insure or purchase coverage for their unreimbursed, unrealized special ed potential costs. As we all know, the districts that we represent live in fear that after their budget is set, that it's possible for students to move into their district that would come with a high cost in the special ed world. This would allow school districts to decide to band together and be the protection for each other. We have worked with the Department of Insurance actuaries, and that was promising enough that the Department of Ed and the Commissioner, Frank Edelblut, contracted with a national actuary firm in Kansas.
Representative Hill, I'd like to hear the whole thing, but I think at this point, we're going to have to take a recess because the time for this bill has gone by. And
Okay.
so we open up for the next bill, and we'll have to take this one up at a later time. Okay, I apologize.
You drive the bus, whatever you would like. I'm at your disposal.
Commercial license? Okay. Thank you very much. We have gone over a little bit on Senate Bill 147. So let's move on to Senate Bill 148.
Madam Chair, I'm not on the committee of conference on 148. Do you expect that we'll be picking this up again once 148 is done?
I have to find out. I don't know anything. I
Okay.
don't know what the schedule is like.
I will keep my ears open. Thank you.
Are all the members in the room here available at 1 o'clock today to reconvene on this on 147?
Representative Hill, what, yeah,
We have a 1 o'clock.
12.
Noon?
I can't hear you.
Are you available at noon? Is everybody available at noon? We're going to take up 148. Somebody has the room. Yes. Somebody has the chambers for a hearing.
Morning, Barbara.
So we'll recess 147 and come back at noon today. Okay? Here, yes, here. So then we'll move over to Senate Bill 148. No, noon time, yep. So 148 has 5 parts. Vocational rehabilitation, career and technical education, emergency plans for co-curricular related injuries and emergencies, private post-secondary career schools, and environmental science education. Let's take, I don't see anything on section 1. Section 1 was something requested by the Department of Education. So we can go over to section 2, which has to do with relative to career and technical education. Do we have anyone wanting to talk about section 2 on Senate Bill 148? There are numerous additions by the House, I've noticed.
there are.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Senator Ward. The House feels that this part of this bill is extremely important. Career technical education has been a high priority on the other side of the wall, as I know it's here with the senators. If you have the side by side, let's walk down through that. On page 2 at the bottom, we added to read as follows: career and technical education of consistent quality shall be equally available to students across the state. Each career and technical education program pathway shall include embedded rigorous academic skills and technical core competencies aligned with the national business and industry standards, delivered through a relevant sequence of charges on forms prescribed by the department. School districts shall report actual tuition and transportation costs, etc. There's no change there. I jumped around there because, oh yeah, I went to page 4. I should have said, the New Hampshire students are encouraged to access career and technical education to learn and apply technical, academic, and employment skills needed for career and life. This was worked with the Director of Career Technical Education over at the department. It's initially the advisory council had come up with it's a right. I believe I talked with Senator Khan about this. I think there should be concurrence on that statement. Going down through, the next portion is a part that deals with transportation of students. This has been a real sore point throughout the state. Transportation, for example, if I live in a small town like a Holderness, my kids go to Plymouth for the CTE Center, I'm provided tuition funds from the state for transporting too. However, if I live in a system like Manchester or Exeter or Nashua, where the CTE Center is in that district, they receive no transportation funding at all, even though they're transporting from one school clear to the other side of town and incurring some horrendous costs over the course of the year. So this part of the bill changes that and aligns it with the Department of Education is authorized to reimburse from its regular budget the full cost of transportation, subject to availability of funds. I would love to see that full. I know in reality, we're on a earth that we have to think reality. So that was also worked out with the Department of Education. Transportation costs shall not exceed the rate adopted pursuant to RSA 541A, the student's resident district, not sending district. So now this allows, for example, Manchester, the resident district is Manchester. It's not a sending district. So it would allow the money to be received by these three departments, towns, communities, Manchester, Exeter, and Nashua, to receive this funding. We've also had a provision within state rule approved by GELCAR that if a student has to self-transport, if the district says, yes, it's wise for John here or Susan to go self-transport to the CTE Center, it saves us money. Or maybe John or Susan have a job in the town where the CTE is located after school, they can self-transport and then transport themselves home. So that's reimbursed at a rate of 25 cents per mile. The tuition transportation's at a rate of 10 cents per mile. The actual cost of transporting a student to a CT right now is $680,000, not the actual, the costs we reimburse are $680,000. The actual costs are $2.68 million. So the districts are still picking up a majority of the tab. We'd love to see this transportation looked at. We did pass a bill. You also passed it. It's been enrolled and now it's going forward in law to set up a committee to look at tuition and transportation costs. This is an issue that has to be addressed. Some districts are holding kids back in their school district, not sending to a CTE based upon that goes over their quota or goes over the available funding for transportation. That should never be denied to a student to go to a CTE program. I hope everybody concurs on that. Going through the rest of this, I think most of the other comments are fairly technical as far as, changing to comply with current use. It also allows construction to involve replacement of a facility. We did change where you had struck on page 5, accept students from sending schools. We talked with the department and both the director and the commissioner, hey, we do want to be able to accept students from sending districts. There are many CTE programs that take kids from as many as 9 different districts. The puts the chancellor, et cetera, that's all similar to of the systems on the CTE council. I believe that goes down through, Senator, the primary changes we have here in the CTE program. I understand there is a concern that we may want to address regarding the payment of funds for the reimbursement of concurrent and dual enrollment of a student. We've now increased that in the CTE program here to include grades 10, so it's 10, 11, and 12. When we initially put this bill through years ago, it only had grades 11 and 12. We recognize the need for 10th graders as well. The bill provides for the payment of these. Right now, we have a provision in statute under that concurrent dual enrollment process there on page 9, where the department shall further develop guidelines for the program relating to the reporting, accountability, and payment of available funds to the community college system of New Hampshire. The community college system of New Hampshire is presently paying these costs right now. The concern that I would have that we might want to address is that we appropriate X number of dollars each year for year 1, year 2 of the program for payment for concurrent and dual enrollment up to $250 per student. They're allowed to take up to 4 courses a year. That's 12 credits. But in terms of the number of students which are actually taking it, are we exceeding the amount of money that we appropriate each year? And how does that get communicated from the community college to the Department of Education? If we exceed the appropriation and the community college comes back to the Department of Education and requests additional funding, then that has to be taken from another program. And so we have to watch out, and I think this needs some look at by us. Currently, I would say on that line I read in page 9, we might want to add the department and the community system New Hampshire shall jointly further develop guidelines for the program. So they work together to develop guidelines for the payment of available funds to the community college system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I also want to point out there is an amendment for I guess it's a technical error in the section 13, dual and concurrent enrollment. It was listed that should be concurrent enrollment program in the Department of Education, and it really should be the Department of Community School Service, schools, the community college
Community college
system,
system, yeah.
right? So there is an amendment, and I don't know, did you get the amendment number?
I have not seen it. Maybe it's
1916, well, it's just a correction to put that into the community college system and moving, changing the other words that come with it. So it's really a very minor change. But you should be aware of it. Is there somebody who doesn't have the amendment?
I think we are past those out, Senator.
Okay. 1916. Any other thoughts, questions on this particular? On part 2?
Yeah, Madam Chair, would it be helpful to point out that that amendment then aligns with the Senate's version of House Bill 2?
Yes, we understand that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on part 2 of 148? I don't see one. Let's then move over to three. That has to do with the this sports injuries. The Athletic Trainers Association had requested a bill, and that was the Senate Bill Part 3 was the result of that. And now the House has added co-curricular related injuries and emergencies. And I should just tell you right off the bat that the Athletic Association will not accept anything except sports related injuries. They will not take on responsibility for any other injuries that might happen. So.
Senator, we understand that NHIAA deals only with sports, but we are concerned that The co-curricular is a wider um, picture, which it also involves intramurals and athletics occurring at the junior high school, middle school levels as well.
Mhm.
There are some smaller schools that allow eighth graders to participate with ninth graders just to get enough kids on the team. That's just a division where it's not like a Division I school.
Mhm.
So we recognize what you just said, and we recognize the need that athletics be though addressed as we have addressed it throughout our statutes. And we have in recent years used the word co-curricular rather than extracurricular.
Okay. Well, it's either the Senate version goes through as it is without the co-curricular, and the co-curricular activities will be a separate bill, maybe next year, or it isn't going anywhere. So that's the option on that one.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I have a question for Representative Ladd.
go ahead. Do
So-
you accept the question,
Oh,
Representative? Ladd?
sure, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So looking at your version, it would include things like Destination Imagination, pep band, math clubs, which I wish that we had more of, things that aren't necessarily athletic related. And I get that you're trying to include for the, especially for the smaller districts where we have sixth graders at an elementary school that play on middle school teams because they need more students, or eighth graders that play on high school teams because they need more students. Were you trying to get all of the athletic related teams in this, or were you trying to get the math teams as well as?
That's a good question, Senator Hennessy. We're trying to attempt to get the intramural programs. We're trying to get the middle school programs, the junior high school programs dealing with athletics and sports. We've recognized when we did the concussion injury statutory language that we also included that, as to include the middle school levels and where you have injuries just as much in an intermediate school, in the grade school level, as you do in a high school. In fact, there's more injury in concussion with girls soccer and oftentimes at the middle school levels. So we know there's injury occurring at these levels. Perhaps this could be modified to include the intramurals and the other extracurricular programs that are taking place at both the elementary, middle school, and high school levels. We believe that coaches, trainers, those people are working with kids should be knowing how to address an injury on the field rather than running up, picking them up, as they did with my own granddaughter when she was playing Littleton in Haverhill as a seventh grader. She went out with a concussion, came back into the game and scored the winning goal. I didn't want to see that happen. And yet kid was put back on the field. The child did not belong back out there.
Right.
The game win was more important to the people running the show.
Mhm.
Intense rivalry between Haverhill and Littleton.
Any other questions or thoughts? Representative Cordelli?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I think that this part of the bill is dealing with the requirement for emergency plans for injuries and emergencies. And I believe that we felt that that should also apply. Those plans should be developed and made available, and make sure that everyone is aware of those plans related to other activities besides the sports, performing groups and so forth. We had testimony about a performing group, child fell off the stage and I believe broke their leg. There should be emergency plans for them in place as well, we believe.
Mhm. Any other thoughts? Senator Khan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there is the difference between sports-related activities in the Senate version and the definition of co-curricular in the House version. Now, I understand the chair saying that the expansion beyond sports related is a non-starter. And I think I concur with you, Madam Chair, because we never had a hearing on this. We never heard in our deliberations, school districts or people who might be treating the co-curricular activities, the performance groups, whether that be a band or a theater, how that would be done. So it does seem, if we're going to take that turn here, become more inclusive, we should at least understand the implications of it. Are there some additional costs in the school districts to do that? We know that athletic trainers and coaches, they have the brain injury protocols. This extends that protocol or the requirement for those teams to extend their protocols and planning beyond just brain injuries. So I think the Senate version covers what the testimony is consistent with the testimony. To go beyond what we heard in the Senate with the House version, I feel like we would be going way beyond the scope of our hearing.
Thank you, Senator Khan. Any other comments?
I have one final comment here. Marching bands oftentimes travel just as do football teams. And they're on the field, they can suffer from heat stroke just as much as a football player can. They are on a school bus, can be in an accident just as a child that's being transported for athletics or sports. We believe that it's important that the supervisor that's in charge of these students, when they are moving to another location or are on the field, such as that marching band in the heat, have that training as well as just for the person that's in that track and field team.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Shaw.
Thank you. As a point of possible compromise, not to go against my two House members here, if we, as a former assistant principal and teacher in the elementary school, I have had children break an arm, break a leg on the playground, whatever. And I think that the co-curricular programs could possibly fall under the normal policies that the school and the school nurse and others have for incidents that would happen anywhere from kindergarten through grade 5 or grade 6 or whatever in the elementary schools or in the middle schools. So I kind of feel like maybe we could compromise and maybe something could be brought forward in the future that might have more of a chance to be heard or to find out what the local districts do in those particular cases, because I'm sure they've had cases like that before. So I kind of think that what we need more than an amended version would be probably the Senate version we could accept as a compromise.
Thank you, Representative Shaw. And we are getting to the point that we have to make another recess because we're not going to get through this one. And we have scheduled 147 to come back at noon time. And obviously we have a couple of, at least one more issue on this particular bill. So if we come back at noon time on 147, maybe 20 of 1, something like that on 148. Do you think that's going to be sufficient?
I have another committee conference at
At noontime?
12:30. At 12:30, I have another committee of conference and
Okay.
at 1. I can come at 2 or later today.
Okay, well, why don't we start with 147 anyhow, and then we have to figure out what we're going to do with 148.
Mm.
Okay? So noontime, back to 147. Thank you very much for coming, and I'm sorry we're going over time, but there are some big issues that are taking quite some time to go through. Thank you. One 147, and then we'll figure out when we can do the rest of 148. Okay?
So is it today? 1:48 this afternoon?
They're busy. Yeah.
Okay, so what did you say? That
They're gonna-
they'll let us know?
Yep, exactly.
All right. So we're free to go?
Yeah, right. We're gonna come back.
I hope I don't-
147.
I hope you guys aren't mad at me for saying that. Okay, because I just thought maybe, it would just, because I think, I honestly think there are already provisions in place for that kind of stuff, because elementary schools and middle schools have very strict rules about coaches and people like that being informed about that stuff already. And I just didn't, if somebody wants to bring that back next time.
All right.
Representative Ladd will be in here again, so no one gets confused. On Wednesday at 1, okay? Okay.
All right, as soon as they're ready for the video, we will start. Okay. All right. You all have your mics in front of you. They have the buttons on there. I believe that these light up red when you are live to speak, and they are sensitive enough to pick up other comments if you have your mics on. Is the senator online? He is online. Okay, then I am James Gray. I'm the Senate first listed senator. So I chair the Senate portion of this for Senate Bill 31. The Senate members are Senator Birdsell and Senator Perkins Quokka. Senator Birdsell, if you'd introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Senator Regina Birdsall from District 19, encompassing the towns of Derry, Hampstead, and Windham.
And Senator Perkins Quokka, if you would.
Yes, good morning, Senator Rebecca Perkins Quokka. I represent District 21, which is Portsmouth, Newmarket, Durham, and the surrounding towns.
Representative Sweeney, I think you're the first named House member, so you'd introduce their House members or have them introduce themselves.
Absolutely. I'm Representative Sweeney from Rockingham District 8, Salem. I'm joined by Representative Peter Hayward.
Good morning, Stratford County, District 1.
Also joined by Representative Catherine Prudhomme O'Brien
Good morning from Derry.
and Representative Maureen Mooney.
Good morning, the town of Merrimack.
Okay, thank you very much. Senate Bill 31, relative to the voter checklist and modifying the absentee ballot application. Senate was all ready to concur with the House when we got a request to take and make sure that House Bill 555, which also deals with the same sections as Senate Bill 31, that OLS was unsure of how they were going to handle that because of the conflict in the statutes. And so I did offer a motion of non-concur, request a committee of conference so that we can do that. I believe all of you have a copy of the amendment that OLS drafted. And so with that as the base, we'll open it up to any comments that you ladies and gentlemen want to make. Yes, ma'am.
Senator, the amendment you referred to, is that Senate Amendment 2021-1921 lowercase s?
Shannon, is that the right number? Yes. Okay.
All
Yes,
right.
ma'am, it is.
Thank you very much. To me, that looks fantastic. Two sticking points. Number one was taking out infectious disease as an excuse. I see in the amendment that's out. Secondly, the misdemeanor provision is in. To me, that covers House Bill 555.
Thank you. Just so that you know that the state's position is that COVID was covered by the existing law before the enactment of House Bill 1266. And that is borne out by the statements signed by both the Secretary of State and the Attorney General that COVID would fall under the provisions of existing law. But because of 1266 and the concern of the citizens, we did add that to the form the last time so that it was a separate checkbox. So again, I think that, that we're there. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you were talking about that being under provisions of existing law, and I wanted to clarify that the section on the absentee ballot request form of disability is where specifically they found that, and I just wanted to
Yep.
make sure that was mentioned. Thank you, sir.
So with that, I don't think we actually need a motion. The Senate will take a poll of its members. Supporting
Chairman.
Senator Perkins Coca. I can't see you, so you have to yell.
Very, very sorry to interrupt you, Chairman. I was made aware of an issue over email just this morning in the amendment where we need to reconcile, I think, the language of HB 555 and SB 31. Where it comes up is in section 2 of the bill as amended by the Senate. And I think that we just need to make sure that in section 2, under the options of what can be checked on the outside of the envelope, section 1B reads, I will be unable to vote in person because I will be working. And we just need to add to that language that says, or because I am incarcerated pretrial or for a misdemeanor. So I just wanted to make sure that we incorporated that fully in the SB 31 amendment to make sure that it didn't overwrite the language of HB 555.
Isn't that in section 4 where it says I am confined to a penal institution for a misdemeanor or while awaiting trial?
I think that if it's only incorporated in section 4, then it will be on the affidavit itself, but not on the envelope.
The intent of what OLS wrote was to incorporate HB 555 into this amendment. I guess when I got your email from this morning, I thought that it was adequately covered. Does anyone else here on the committee conference think that it is not?
The
Yes, ma'am.
inclusion of this language, I think, is sufficient on the form itself. There was some confusion about this when people were incarcerated awaiting trial in their own communities because they didn't want to have to say that they'll be out of their community. They didn't want to have to be dishonest on the request form. And when this was included, that gave the option of checking that box so that they could accurately portray their situation. And I think that's good enough. If in the future we find that it also needs to be on the envelope, we can address that in future legislation. I think that's a good point and something to consider, but I think at this point, it's fine as it is, in my opinion.
Comments, Senator Perkins Coker?
I think it's not a huge issue. It would be great to reconcile it. This is my first committee of conference, so I don't know if we can do a committee amendment, but it would make sense to me just to fix the language since we know what the fix is and we have it here. If we can incorporate it as a friendly change to your amendment, Chairman Gray, but if everybody here feels like that's procedurally too complicated, I understand.
Well,
Chairman Gray,
Senator,
would it be possible when we're discussing it we discuss it on the floor, make sure the intent of the language is what we want? So it's on the record. And if we need to make changes later, then we can.
all right. It's not overly complicated to do what you want, Senator Perkins Coker. But right now, I don't know that I need to for my vote. I think that the intent is certainly there, you and I over the summer can have a conversation and maybe sponsor some co-legislation to do if we need to, exactly what you're talking about. And you know, I'd be happy to talk to you about that.
Okay,
So.
understood,
without
Chairman.
that, any other comments? Senator Perkins Spoken?
No, sir, I understand and happy to work with you on it over the summer.
Okay, with that, I'll poll the senators. Senator Birdsell, you agree with the change and with the amendment? And Senator Perkins Spoken?
Am I voting first?
Your second, Senator Birdsell said.
I said yes.
with the amendment.
Okay, yes.
Bill as amended with that amendment.
Yes,
Okay, and the chair votes yes. And if you would poll the House members?
Absolutely. Representative Hayward? Representative Bruno O'Brien? Representative Mooney? I'm also in favor.
All right, with that, we will, I will go down to OLS, get the paperwork going. Unlike the House, who has to write the report before it can be signed off, the Senate goes down and fills out the paperwork, and that constitutes our report. So that from this to actually doing the signatures is all that we need to do. And if there's no other business to come before us, adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back after recess. We're still working on SB 147. And I believe that when we last left, Representative Hill was going to do a presentation.
Certainly. I will give you the Reader's Digest version of it. This is enabling legislation to allow school districts the ability to utilize the existing RSA 5B to formulate on their own 5 district risk pools, associations to handle any unrealized and unexpected special ed costs that occur after their budgets have been set. And all of this would also go along with the DOE creation and maintenance of a cost predictor risk pool software tool that is in existence now and has been updated with, I think, about 10 years worth of special ed data to ensure accuracy. And an actuarial firm in Kansas has created this tool and is currently sitting on the shelf at the DOE. And it would be nice to be able to use it as soon as possible. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or comments.
Who did you consult with in writing this up?
The actual legislation, I had worked with for the past 2 or 3 years, the Department of Insurance actuaries, the actuary firm that was hired out of Kansas, the DOE. Senator Guido was in 1 or 2 of the meetings. Senator French was in 1 or 2 of the meetings. And Representative Rick Ladd. Who else was in the meeting? And actually, the Honorable Michael Balboni helped prepare the.
Insurance companies?
No insurance companies were discussed. We did consult with the. No, I'm sorry, I take that back. AON was involved in the beginning with this. They bid, as did Milliman, with for the RFP to create the software and to do the actuary firm. To consult with an actuary firm. And so those insurance companies were involved. Whether they were both interested in an idea of creating a third party and a reinsurance company to do this kind of work. They're always looking for new markets. So my belief is once these associations are created, there will be an insurance product that is created from the private sector to offer coverage for this. And I believe the actuary firm from Kansas also suggested that that would be possible.
Thank you. Questions? Senator Hennessy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to let everyone know that I have requested an amendment on this bill. Would you like me to go into the details of the amendment?
Sure.
Okay. So after discussion with my Senate colleagues during our break time, I've requested an amendment of OLS, and I'll walk you through it. For part 1 of the bill, we will be combining or adding back into the House version, part 1 of the Senate version, but deleting one part of part 1 of the Senate version. And that is, if you look at the side-by-side comparison that the House Committee Research Office has put together for us, under part 2 on page 2, it says each school district with a high school shall provide to each high school student and, if applicable, his or her parent or guardian, any support or assistance necessary to comply with paragraph 1. And then In the next section is where I'm going to be deleting a part. A school district shall award a high school diploma to a student who is unable to meet the requirements of paragraph 1. And then I'll be deleting the words due to extenuating circumstances as determined by the school district. So what we'll have is a school district shall award a high school diploma to a student who is unable to meet the requirements of paragraph 1 if the student has met all other graduation requirements and the principal attests that the school district has made a good faith effort to assist the student, or if applicable, his or her parents or guardian filling out the application or waiver. And then the only other change that I requested is under the House version, under what Representative Hill was just discussing, the new mitigation of special education and special education risk management association. In there, I ask OLS to add a opt-in by the district voters option. So the right now it doesn't, I don't read anywhere in there that requires the opting into one of these risk pools to be approved by the voters. And I just ask that be written into there. So if a school district is going to go into a cost pool, they need prior approval at town meeting.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to
Any-
take questions.
Further discussion? Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator. For Senator Hennessy, on the amendment, when we're looking at part 1, and you're looking at the House version, that portion of the amendment, what was the effective date for that part to go in effect, effective immediately?
Yes, upon passage, I believe, part 1. What is it now? Yep. So right now, effective date of part 1 shall take effect upon passage. And I believe the Senate version will be upon passage as well, but the Senate version has language in there that although it's upon passage, it's not until the beginning with the 2023-2024 school year.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Madam Chair, just want to
Senator
ask
Johnson.
Representative Hill a question on part 4.
Will you accept the question?
I will.
Go ahead.
So this is for school districts with 1,000 or fewer students, right?
Thank you for your question. No, this is for school districts. Of
Any size.
Yep. In fact, to elaborate a little bit more, the idea originally was for there to be one statewide school district or association. And then it was pointed out that there may be instances where for geographic reasons or for size of a district that they may want to join with 4 of their neighboring districts. So we were careful to make sure that the districts decide what association they choose to be in. And so there is no limitation. This is to try to be as self-directed as possible, so that the associations would create that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator, may I tag on to what was just said right here?
Sure.
The reference to 1,000 students is in the first portion initially that I believe Senator Bradley had put in. And that would raise an additional 250, well, make available another 250 grand for those districts that are smaller than that, but have the necessary to prevent significant financial harm to those districts with that unexpected cost, unincorporated areas being one.
So both sections are effective in this bill.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Further questions on Senate Bill 147?
So in conclusion, looks like we're right down the bottom line here.
Yep.
Part 3 remains the House version. Correct, Senator Hennessy?
Tell me which one is part 3.
Part 3 is the one, the contract carrier.
That's the House version.
The which version?
House.
Thank you very much.
And we took care of one with an amendment and special education mitigation. So I think that takes care of 147, if I'm right. Do we have? Yep,
Pending that amendment.
that's
So
amended.
to do this thing right, I want to ask the people in the House side where we are on that.
Yep.
And hopefully
Uh,
we're supposed to take a vote separately.
Okay.
So
Could I ask you a question first?
Representative Cordelli.
Madam Chair, if I might, just wanted to ask about the amendment in part 3, which was the contract carrier that we said was the House version. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Representative
Um,
Graham,
Thank you. Assuming that the amendment reads the way that we believe, I'm on board.
Representative Cordelli,
I'm fine with that.
Representative Hill.
Just all
And-
right.
And Rick Glad, yes. So we're unanimous in support of the amendment
Thank you.
and the bill as amended.
The Senate version,
Yes.
Senator Khan,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So we are unanimous in our acceptance of Senate Bill 147.
Thank you very much, senators.
Madam Chair, do we need to meet again, or
We have to meet, I'm waiting for a time to meet on 148.
do we need to meet to review the amendment, or pending the amendment? If there's no issues with the amendment, we just sign off?
If we looked at the amendment, we heard the amendment right now.
Yeah.
And it will come later on down at the legislative office.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Yes.
That's correct.
So Grant, are we all set? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Unanimous consent of
We-
Senate Bill 147.
That's 1 o'clock on Wednesday.
1 o'clock on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This is Senator French's, right? Where you are.
I don't know.
This goes. That's it. We're pretending we're senators.
Right in here.
I think so. Senator?
Is
This
this
is
French?
Harold French, right?
Yes,
Like this. And this is you, right?
Jim Gray.
French. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job, Greg.
Yeah, well, actually, that's Aaron's work.
The sign-off form will be available down in the legislative services. Yeah, right, yeah. We got to sign off, and if you can't get in, you can call the speaker's office and they'll sign you in for you. Okay. A lot of us do that. So we don't have to black that out. When do you think the amendment? Yeah. Yeah. That's good. And you're telling us right now. No, MC one. Oh, that's for us, but for 148.
Oh. You're
Yeah. Well, it's okay. We can sign off when we're here on Wednesday.
Yeah, right. Well,
No, you're
No,
not.
You're done.
this is my one. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Was it a fantastic experience?
But it was nice to
Memorable.
see her.
Yes. Okay.